Discovering the true meaning of teaching through challenges. I stood at the entrance of Ridgewood High School, the sun casting a warm glow on the bustling students around me. The excitement of a new school year filled the air, but my heart was heavy with uncertainty. This would be my first year as a full-time teacher, and while I had always dreamed of this moment, I couldn't shake the fear that gripped me. What if I wasn't good enough? What if I failed my students? As I made my way to the staff room, I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had worked hard to get here. After years of studying education and teaching assistant roles, I was finally ready to embark on this journey. I had a curriculum planned, fresh ideas swirling in my mind, and an unwavering passion for shaping young minds. Yet, the reality of the challenges ahead loomed large. The first few weeks of school were a whirlwind of activity. I was assigned to teach 9th grade English, and as I entered the classroom for the first time, I was met with a sea of unfamiliar faces. I smiled and introduced myself, but the students remained largely indifferent, lost in their own worlds. I tried to engage them with interactive lessons, incorporating technology and group discussions, but I quickly realized that many of them were disengaged, uninterested in the subject matter. It was during one of those first lessons that I encountered my first major challenge. A student in the back row, Jake, was particularly resistant. He slouched in his chair, his expression a mix of boredom and defiance. No matter how I tried to connect with him, he seemed determined to undermine my efforts. His peers laughed at his sarcastic remarks, and I could feel the tension rising in the room. After class, I sought advice from my mentor, Mrs. Thompson, who had taught for over 20 years. Sometimes it takes time to build trust with the students, she advised. Don't take it personally. Focus on finding what interests them. Her words resonated with me, and I vowed to put in the effort to understand my students better. I began to spend time getting to know my students individually. I encouraged them to share their interests and passions, hoping to weave those into my lessons. I discovered that Jake had a passion for video games, so I designed a project around storytelling and gaming. To my surprise, he engaged with the material and even started to participate in discussions. It felt like a breakthrough, and I was hopeful that I could reach him. However, just as I thought I was making progress, I faced another hurdle. One day, I noticed that attendance was slipping, particularly among my struggling students. The school counselor informed me that several families were facing financial difficulties, and some students were working part-time jobs to help make ends meet. My heart sank as I realized that these challenges extended beyond the classroom and into their lives. Determined to support my students, I organized a community outreach program. I collaborated with local businesses to provide school supplies and support services to families in need. As I reached out to the community, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just a teacher, I was becoming an advocate for my students. The response from the community was overwhelming. Parents, local organizations, and volunteers came together to contribute, and I felt a sense of pride in what we could accomplish as a collective. The program was a success, and I watched as my students returned to class with a renewed sense of hope and motivation. It was a turning point for many, and I began to see their spirits lift. But just as things began to settle, another challenge emerged. During a routine class discussion, a heated debate broke out over a sensitive topic. The room erupted into chaos as students argued passionately, emotions flaring. I struggled to regain control, my heart racing as I tried to facilitate a respectful conversation. It was a stark reminder of the complexities of teaching. My students weren't just numbers in a system, they were individuals with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and opinions. I realized that it was my responsibility to create a safe space for these discussions, to teach them how to engage with differing perspectives constructively. That evening, I reflected on the day's events, realizing that I needed to approach this issue head-on. I developed a series of lessons on respectful discourse, teaching my students how to listen actively and engage in civil discussions. It took time, but I saw a gradual change. They learned to express their thoughts without resorting to hostility, and I felt a sense of accomplishment. As the months progressed, I encountered more challenges that tested my resolve. A major turning point came when I discovered that one of my students, Lily, was struggling academically. She was bright and capable, but her home life was chaotic, and it affected her performance in class. I reached out to her and offered to help her catch up on assignments, but she was reluctant to accept my support. One day, after school, I found her sitting alone in the library, her head buried in her hands. I approached cautiously, my heart aching for her. I sat down beside her and quietly asked if she wanted to talk. To my surprise, she opened up about her struggles. I listened intently as she described the challenges she faced at home, the pressure to succeed weighing heavily on her shoulders. In that moment, I understood the true meaning of teaching. It wasn't just about delivering lessons, it was about being there for my students in their times of need. I worked with Lily to create a personalized study plan, providing her with the resources and support she needed to succeed. Slowly, I watched her confidence grow, and by the end of the semester, she had improved dramatically. As the school year continued, I faced various other challenges, but each one contributed to my growth as an educator. I navigated conflicts between students, organized extracurricular activities, and sought ways to make learning relevant and engaging. I learned to embrace flexibility and adaptability, recognizing that each day would bring something new. One of the most rewarding moments came during our annual school showcase, where students presented projects they had worked on throughout the year. I was overwhelmed with pride as I watched my students shine, showcasing their hard work and creativity. They had transformed from reluctant learners into enthusiastic participants, eager to share their accomplishments with their peers and families. However, just as I was riding high on the success of the showcase, tragedy struck. One of my students, Ben, was involved in a serious car accident. He had been a bright light in our classroom, and the news of his injury hit me like a punch to the gut. The entire school community was shaken, and I found myself grappling with feelings of helplessness and sadness. I attended the vigil held for Ben, surrounded by students, parents, and teachers who shared their love and support. In that moment, I realized how deeply connected we all were, how the bonds formed in the classroom extended far beyond academic subjects. As we lit candles in his honor, I felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over me. Teaching wasn't just about imparting knowledge, it was about fostering community and resilience in the face of adversity. As the weeks passed, Ben's recovery became a symbol of hope for our school. I organized a fundraiser to help support his family during this difficult time, and the outpouring of support from students and the community was incredible. It was a reminder of the strength we had when we came together, and I felt a sense of pride in being part of such a compassionate community. By the end of the school year, I had faced challenges I never anticipated, each one shaping my understanding of what it truly meant to be a teacher. I realized that the struggles I encountered were not just obstacles but opportunities for growth, both for myself and my students. I had learned the importance of empathy, resilience, and advocacy. Reflecting on my journey, I felt grateful for the experiences that had molded me into the educator I had become. I had discovered that teaching was about so much more than the curriculum. It was about nurturing relationships, empowering students, and creating a safe space for them to learn and grow. As the final bell rang on the last day of school, I stood in my classroom, looking around at the familiar faces of my students. They had transformed throughout the year, each one of them carrying their own stories and struggles. I felt a sense of bittersweet nostalgia as I thought about all we had accomplished together. I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. I had discovered the true meaning of teaching through the trials and triumphs of the past year. With a heart full of hope and determination, I looked forward to the next chapter, knowing that I would carry these lessons with me for years to come. In the end, I understood that teaching was a lifelong journey, one filled with moments of joy, heartache, and everything in between. Each challenge I faced had brought me closer to my students and reinforced my commitment to their success. I was excited for the future, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that I would continue to learn and grow alongside my students.